So scholars today attempt to connect or place Witkowski amongst many different movements. It's not uncommon to see him obviously placed with Leibniz in regard to his methodology. We also see him arising out of the Moda Polska movement, especially when it comes to the artistic freedom and the role of the artist. We can also view him in context with the movements of his time. We see him connected with the futurists, with the expressionists. We can also see him as a precursor to different fields as well. Some people connected with Heidegger's phenomenology. Some people see him as connected with Sartre's existentialism. And then some more ambitious people try to connect into things like post-structuralism. All these with varying degrees of success. But what about feminist theory? This seems to be a tall order, but it's something I'm going to try to do today, connecting with late 20th century feminist philosophy. I'd like to start with a quote. There's an outline too in Polish. I'd like to start with a quote from Plaspodu. "This horrible torture is the essence of what I live, a conversation with a woman." Witkowski's women. In his personal life, Witkowski was heavily influenced by strong women, from his mother to his love interest Irena Solska, to his wife Jadwiga, to his longtime girlfriend Czesława. He also had a relationship with Irena Krzywicka, who he wanted to paint or draw very badly. So it's not surprising that strong women often found life in his dramatic literature and novels. However, it seems to me that female characters in Witkowski's literary world seem to fall under two categories. First, many of the female characters act as muses, as inspiration for male characters, to produce, to create things like poetry, painting, philosophical and political manifestos or movements. Some examples of this: Sister Anna in Variety Zakonnica pleads with Walpurg that he must fulfill his destiny. Lucina in Matka encourages Leon to fulfill his destiny. The water hens, dying words in the first act: "You must be great in one way or the other." In contrast to this, we witness another type, the sexually insatiable dominatrixes, such as Bellatrix from Maciej Kotoba, Iza from Tomb of Bernouilli, Hilda from Beelzebub Sonata, Percy from Insatiability. The perversity of these demonic women undermines the narcissistic fantasies of omnipotence of the failed artist that pervade Witkowski's works. So with these two extreme poles in mind, we're reminded here of the famous feminist text, The Mad Woman in the Attic by Gilbert and Gubar. The two authors noticed that in 19th century literature, female characters are depicted either as the submissive female as angel, or the dangerous female as monster. In 622, Downfalls of Bungo, or the demonic woman, we observe both of these extremes in the character Acne. I quote, and the quote is on your outline. "She looked now like a Madonna, one of the Italian primitives, but a Madonna for which an Italian dama had posed for a master. A dama handling a stiletto and poison with equal skill, and who, with her strange and mysterious, murderously beautiful face, had forced him to bestow her perverse features upon the immaculate mother of the Son of God. At times, however, her miraculous beautiful profile, carved as if from congealed sea foam, and had within it something so sacred and distant from sensuality that Bungo summoned to his thoughts that conviction based on monstrous city rumors he held about her. Despite this, there were times that something extremely filthy and wicked wandered about her mouth, and she absorbed into herself in a kind of unconscious fervor melodies of romance, strange as the moonlight, but the expression only raised the purity of sanctity of her gaze even more, and it seemed that Acne had occupied some cruel asceticism with the right to understand the deepest secrets of being." So not only does this passage reflect Gilbert and Gubar's famous text, the assessment of representation of 19th century literature, women in 19th century literature, it also calls to mind Freud's theory that for the male subject, women are divided into holy, representing the side of a sexually unavailable mother, and at the same time being the object of his tender attitude, and harlots associated with sexuality as the domain of moral decline and debauchery, and being at the same time the object of his contempt and aggression. Upon closer examination, however, more than limiting the female representation of these two extremes, we notice that most of the female characters, while impactful, offer no creative output. Their only agency is in relation to the male characters, and the male characters often feeling creative after intimate relations with the female characters, attempt to produce great work, to develop artistic, political, and social theories that will live on in posterity, giving them a sense of immortality. And here we again see Gilbert and Gubar's idea of literary paternity, where men give birth to immortal things, while women give birth to mortal beings. Interestingly, Bukatsu's female characters usually do not give birth, and in some cases are barren. So Gilbert and Gubar talk about this in their discussion of literary paternity. They argue that a literary text is, I quote, a literary text is power, mysteriously made manifest, made flesh. In patriarchal Western culture, therefore, the text author is a father, a progenitor, a procreator, an aesthetic patriarch whose pen is an instrument of generative power. More, his pen's power is not just the ability to generate life, but the power to create, a posterity to which he lays claim. So, how can we possibly see Bukatsu's connection to any feminist theory other than exemplifying Gilbert and Gubar's harsh assessment of female representation in literary text, or as an illustration of Freud's misogynistic tropes of female sexuality? So, maybe we could look at Cixous to help us find a way to understand Bukatsu in relation to feminist theory. So, feminine writing and the theory of pure form in the theater. First, feminine writing. The French feminist theorist Hélène Cixous takes up where Gilbert and Gubar left off. In Laugh of the Medusa, Cixous questions the marginalization and silencing of women throughout literary history. She argues for a new way of writing, littérature féminine, feminine writing. Establishing this new style of writing for Cixous has multiple goals. First, she argues that women must write women. Women must tell their stories in order to overturn masculine discourse and to transform the lack of female body and female sexuality in literature and culture. Secondly, feminine writing for Cixous is a way to subvert and ultimately eliminate the marginalization of women and the feminine in Freudian and Athenian psychoanalytic theory. She traces this back through Lacan and Freud and psychoanalytic concept that woman is constituted by and as lack. One of the consequences in Freud's view of the female lack is that female unconscious is less repressed, less radically separated from the consciousness, since the threat of castration, which creates repression, has already been carried out. Because of this, Cixous argues, woman has always been in a position of otherness and alterity, Western phallocentric culture. Using Derrida's idea of play, however, Cixous notes that woman is decentered and therefore freer to move and create. Littérature féminine originates from the Freudian idea that women are incomprehensible, less rational than men. Freud called women the dark continent. And Cixous uses that as a metaphor to celebrate the lack of control, possible over the position of woman in the phallocentric symbolic order. Feminine writing is associated with, as much as is possible, the Lacanian real, with the maternal body, which is barred from the symbolic order. It is a return to the female body, to female sexuality, to female discourse, to the mother, from whom she had been separated. However, Cixous has difficulty describing what feminine writing looks like, and how exactly it will be returned to the body. She does emphasize poetry as the most suitable possibility of the existing genres, as it emphasizes fluid style that elicits multiple meanings. On the other hand, she dismisses novels and realist prose as allies of representationalism, which try to speak a stable language and do not speak to the structure of language itself. To avoid representational discourse, she often associates feminine writing with non-linguistic modes. For instance, feminine writing is milk, it's a song, something with rhythm and pulse but no words, something connected with bodies and with beats and movements, but divorced from representational language. It is characterized by disruptions in the text, such as gaps, silences, puns, plays on language. It is eccentric, incomprehensible, and inconsistent. It takes the form of jouissance. By avoiding any concrete definition or description of the product, she avoids anchoring it or delimiting it. So Cixous writes, it is impossible to define the feminine practice of writing. And this is an impossibility that will remain, for this practice can never be theorized, enclosed, coded, which doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but it will always surpass the discourse that regulates the phallocentric system. It does and will take place in areas other than those subordinated to philosophical theoretical domination. It will be conceived of only by subjects who are breakers of automatisms, by peripheral figures that no authority can ever subjugate. Unquote. Pure form in the theater. So let's turn to Vitkazi now. Vitkazi too called for a new approach to artistic and literary creations based on his theory of pure form. We do find some striking similarities with Cixous and her idea of feminine writing. However, the origins of the theory of pure form do have a different philosophical history. In New Forms in Painting, Vitkazi chronicles the decline of art from its earliest connections to religion to contemporary approaches with emphasis on realism and naturalism. The earliest known artifacts and writings, Vitkazi argues, show the religious nature of art as characterized by no difference between pure form and external content, because the directly expressed unity in plurality is not divided from its symbolic, the image of the fantastic deity. As art developed through the ages, the intimate connection between form and content was lost and began favoring content and symbolism, while rejecting any emphasis on formal structures. Because of this, Vitkazi claimed the people of his day could not get excited by the old art forms. Due to this ineffectiveness, people needed something to shock and stimulate their nervous system after long hours of mechanized work and arguments. It was through art, one of the last hopes for mankind, that individuals could once again experience, if only momentarily, this mystery of existence that Vitkazi strove to connect with in an otherwise mechanized world. So similar to Cixous, Vitkazi struggled at times to illustrate the theory of pure form in the theater. He generalizes that pure form can be defined as certain construction of any given elements, such as sounds, colors, words, actions, combined with utterances. Painting and music have simple elements, pure qualities, such as, whereas poetry and theater have complex elements. Most importantly, though, art should not rely on faithfully copying the subject matter, rather focus on the unity of construction. This is why art in his time, art in Vitkazi's time, moves away from the past subject-centered traditions to more crooked, bizarre, upsetting, and nightmarish works. So even with this general framework in mind, pure form on the stage is difficult to imagine. He offers a couple of examples throughout. The ultimate goal, however, is to create something that avoids representational dialogue and focuses on formal qualities that structures of the work, such as sound, decor, movements, and stage dialogue. We want, Vitkazi hopes, to be an entirely new world, to witness the fantastic psychology of characters who are completely implausible in real life. If this is accomplished, the audience leaves as if waking from some strange dream. However, like Cixous, Vitkazi didn't want to delimit or codify his theory. So he stresses that, I quote, the theory of art as formulated above in its general outlines can in no way be used to impose rules on artists. So, where can we see some intersections? So again, this is very much a work in progress. And so I found some areas of connection between Vitkazi's theory of pure form and the feminine writing. So, both Vitkazi and Cixous allow for transformation and free play for the authors. Both are reluctant to define the theories in specific terms to avoid limiting creativity. Both place a special focus to avoid representational dialogue, emphasis on movement, rhythms, ruptures, plays, risaments. Both highlight formal elements in the structure of language itself. Most importantly, both attempt to gain access to gain access to the unconscious. Vitkazi's emphasis on creating dreamlike states that elicit the metaphysical feeling of the strangeness of existence, the primordial feeling of unity, something that was attainable in the past but now requires a new method to access, namely pure form. Cixous likewise advocates feminine writing for women to overturn male-dominated discourse and to reclaim their bodies and sexuality, which has been lost in the phallocentric symbolic realm. In both cases, their effort is to attain a sense of unity by accessing the unconscious through artistic expression, through language, and through the body. Interestingly, this is my final point, interestingly, some scholars have noted that Cixous' own literary works, particularly in the field of drama, fail to live up to her own general description of feminine writing. Similarly, Vikatsi claims he never was able to truly capture pure form on the stage. Perhaps, this is my last point, perhaps Vikatsi's female characters, given the opportunity to produce and create, might be better suited to fulfill the often incomplete creative roles of the male characters. By doing this, women can present themselves as such and not be defined by lack. Okay, thank you very much.